Good morning. And before I begin, I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners on which we work and learn. And I pay my respects to the First Nations people and their elders past, present and emerging. I give my respects to the Wathaurong people, the traditional custodians of the lands where I am based. So thank you for joining me for Commerce Ballarat's first virtual Biznet Breakfast. When preparing for this webinar, I actually found out that Biznet Breakfasts have been running in Ballarat for almost 20 years. So it's the longest running business network forum. So it feels lovely that we can still continue to connect, even though the rest of the world's in a little bit of chaos. So this online platform has also enabled people to join us from Queensland, New South Wales, across Victoria, and perhaps even an attendee from England if she could stay awake. All right, so now that's the end of seeing my beautiful face, and I will start the presentation and let's get going. Oops, so that one. Hold on 1 moment. There we go. So first of all, I would like to say thank you to all the wonderful Biznet sponsors. Without these sponsors, these type of events can't happen. So thank you to Adroit Insurance and Risk, BJT Legal, People at Work, Findex, 3BA and Power FM, and thank you to City of Ballarat for your support. Now on to a little bit of the housekeeping. So the toilets are located in your home. Therefore, I don't think I need to tell you where they are. If you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to type in the little Q&A box down the bottom of your screen, and I'll check throughout the session to see if there's any questions, but I'll also answer anything at the end. This session is also recorded, so if there's anything that you missed or you want to look back on it, it will be available on the Commerce Ballarat site later today, along with some tips in a one-pager as to what I've discussed today. So before I move on, I would really like to challenge you. If you hear something that you're not already doing, please write it down. This is literally how you will support your well-being. Write it down, put some action to it, and start practicing today. This is how we're going to do it together and help all of our well-being to survive through these times. So this is how we're going to get to I Can. My name is Natasha, or Tash Duncan, and I work with Optum Leadership, and we all worked from home before it was cool. We connect online throughout the week and face-to-face every 6 months or so for an espresso martini. So I'm based in Ballarat, and we've got team members in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. We're a leadership consultancy with a foundation in positive psychology. So to introduce you to positive psychology and one of the elements, mindfulness, in more of a practical way, I'd just like to run through a shortened version of a mindful pause. So this is a simple strategy we like to use to enable participants to settle into their learning. So stop what you're doing and bring your attention to the present. Sit upright, but not too stiffly. Take a moment to note what you are seeing and hearing. Note your body sensations, thoughts, emotions. Notice liking, disliking, or spacing out. And simply observe this moment as it is right now. Be aware of your present moment's experience, however it is, without trying to change it. Relax and gently redirect full attention to the sensations in your body. Feel each part of your body and relax. Direct your attention to your breath. Feel each in and out breath and let it be in its own natural rhythm. Expand your awareness to your breath, body, and sound, and open up to all senses. Now bring yourself back to the present. So this was a simple technique of bringing you into this webinar. So this is something that we use in our training and something that you might like to use in your Monday morning meeting to help everyone get into the present moment before you kick off. So not thinking about what's happened or things that you need to get done, thinking about what it is right now, being present in this webinar and listening to what's happening now. So this morning, we're going to cover some tips to maintain your well-being. The current COVID pandemic is creating a lot of disruption, confusion, and fear for everyone. It's so important right now that we make time for our own personal well-being and the well-being of our family, friends, communities, and the people we work with or lead. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to do a quick intro into positive psychology. So when I say that, you know what I'm talking about. And some of the evidence-based methods that you can use to maintain and increase your well-being. Overall, we're going to talk about what's in your control. So talking about setting up your routine and your workspace, a different view on disruptions, how do you transition from work to home, communication right now, being online, it's a different form of communication, and making sure that you're avoiding assumptions. The importance of continuing these work rituals and operating rhythm, and acknowledging your progress and using self-compassion. So let's get started. So what do I mean when I say positive psychology? Positive psychology aims to understand, test, discover, and promote the factors that allow individuals and communities to thrive. Positive psychology provides the scientific evidence on the benefits of personal and community well-being. These are the things that are in our control to support and increase well-being. So things that we can do. We can show kindness to others. We can show kindness to ourselves through self-compassion. We can achieve the health benefits of mindfulness. We can think or write down things that we are grateful for, and you can let others know what you're grateful to them for. Even the actions that they do, if someone's dropped you off food or things like that, I'm grateful for those people in my world. We can ask ourselves what strengths we have called upon in previous difficult times and use these to support your well-being now, and look for strengths in others. Use this time to get curious about anything you choose. And so importantly right now, stay connected with your community. And when I'm saying community, I'm meaning people in your house, your family, your friends, your colleague, your neighbours from a distance. All of these people are part of your community, and these are the people that are going to help support you right now and support you when things start to shift into more normality. So although I won't cover these in today's session, I did want to quickly mention things such as a good routine in relation to sleep, nutritional food choices, and daily exercise continue to be, and particularly at this time, important for your well-being. So these things that I've mentioned are all evidence-based techniques that can support and increase your well-being. Quite simply, as they say, put your mask on first. So focus on your well-being to enable you to help and support others. So as I mentioned, this session really is built on what you can control or influence. So this concept was covered in the Facing Adversity and Building Resilience webinar that is available on the Commonwealth Ballarat website. But I wanted to reiterate how important this is for your well-being. And as the name suggests, it really is that simple. Focus on what you can control. So a simple way to get started is to make a list of all the factors that are currently out of your control. For example, how long this will last, the actions of others in relation to the guidelines, or how others are reacting. Then think of all the things that are directly in your control, such as thoughts and feelings, or things you can influence, such as your impact on others. Include things that you're grateful for and put some actions beside these. For instance, after this webinar, put some actions for something you want to try, schedule it in your routine. This is you taking control of your well-being. to help make this shift. Focus on the good and do things that bring you joy. Try and limit the time you spend on social media. Consider signing out of your social media accounts to reduce procrastination browsing like people all do. Repurpose your commute time and instead do things that bring you joy and a sense of achievement. So get curious. As an individual or a family, a team, choose something you've always wanted to know more about and find out more. Maybe it's about slam poetry and you can bring it all into your team meeting. Find an expert and book in a time to ask questions. Fix that squeaky hinge that has been annoying you for weeks, and it's a simple act of bringing you a sense of achievement. Do an online yoga class with your family or housemates in the morning. Baking, dancing, singing, painting, watching comedy, or things that make you giggle. All of these things are what you can do to bring your focus away from some of the negativity that's happening around. And make sure you pay attention to where your mind goes throughout the day. Obviously, when you see different news updates and different things, you may start to have feelings of anxiety or getting overwhelmed. When you feel this, try and go back to your list of things that you can control and act on it. The key is to make sure you schedule these into your new routine so you don't get sidetracked and absorbed in day-to-day challenges. So let's look at your routine and workspace. So there's two sections here. Firstly, for those of you who are now working from home, but also for those of you who are still going into the workplace. So let's start with those of you who have shifted to working from home. If you haven't already, create your new routine, which includes work boundaries. This is literally, if you used to book meetings into your calendar, still do this. Make sure you're booking these in. Discuss with your new work from home colleagues, who is your partner, housemates, children, the new work week. How can you remember to show each other kindness and gratitude now that you're going to be seeing each other a lot more? Pretend like you're going into the office and structure your day the same way. Without things like a face-to-face meeting to break up the day, it's easy to lose focus or burn out. Talk about how you can create the boundaries between work and personal time. Get the details sorted now to reduce tension in the coming weeks. So things such as someone walking in, I can't find the milk, as in you're in your workspace now. So these are the type of boundaries that you're talking about. And if it's anything like my household, the increased presence of children hurricanes means there's more cleaning added. So working 9 to 5 for me at the moment isn't realistic. To stay on schedule, segment what you'll do and when over the course of the day. So thinking about the times that you're most productive, book those things in. Use your online calendar to create personal events and reminders that tell you when to shift gears or start on a new task. Really good idea just to keep you motivated. And it may seem like common sense, but now that you're going to be working from home for at least the next few months, try and choose a dedicated space to work that you can walk away from. A dedicated space will help you get into the right frame of mind when you start your day. Try and consider how to make it ergonomically comfortable as possible. Preferably choose a space with natural light. And if you can't allocate a separate room or area, perhaps consider how you can divide that space. So the next section is in regards to disruptions, because there's so many extra people at home. So a certainty right now is that there will be disruptions. I presume most of us have laughed and sympathised with the dad being interviewed on BBC News a few years ago. So in the information for this webinar, I included the quote from Socrates because it's particularly relevant now. The secret to change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. So once you recognise disruptions, try and consider solutions, but don't apologise for the disruptions. We are all working more casually. If your child bursts in, if your dog won't stop barking or the cat won't get off the laptop, that's okay. This is what we're all going through, these kind of disruptions. And practice self-compassion to make a conscious effort to accept that this will happen. and gratitude to make the most of what you have. So pull your dog up onto the screen and have a laugh about it. A friend of mine wrote a post recently about planning her day to be active and productive with children and study, and then giving herself the flexibility to abandon the plan when it all falls apart. So I think that's really important, that self-compassion of being a little bit flexible, but also setting those routines and boundaries as much as possible. So the final note for those of you who are working from home that I feel is very important is to consider how you can transition from work to home when there is no longer a commute. So many of us would have previously used the commute time to unwind from the day. So what things can you do to ensure your work is left at your new desk and that you are ready to be home? So research by Dr. Adam Fraser suggests a so-called third space, stating that it's not what you do, it's what you do in between what you do that really matters. The third space is that moment of transition from one role or task to the next role or task. So that includes the transition from work into home. Dr. Fraser undertook research with Deakin University, and after getting people to do 3 very specific behaviours in the third space between work and home, these were to reflect, rest, and reset. So in that transition from work to home, reflect, make sense of it, ask yourself, what went well today? What did I achieve? What did I get better at today? When people look at what they achieved and how they grew, they're more optimistic and grew in terms of happiness. So rest. Use this stage to calm your mind, recompose, so you don't move on to the next task with racing thoughts. Depending on the time, take a few deep breaths. Go for a quick walk around the block. So we all know that feeling of running from work to meeting to children to whatever happening at home. But this is just a simple technique just to slow that transition down so you are ready and present in the next space. And then reset. So align your mindset with what is about to happen. Ask yourself what your intention is. Do you want to enjoy your time with your family? Think about how you're going to show up when you walk through the door in the other room, from another room. What's your intention and how do you behave to get that intention? Also, don't forget to consider how you turn up to work at the start of the day in the right headspace when you've actually only moved to a different room or a different area. One of your actions may be to use the mindful pause at the start of the session to start your day. Personally, I turn on a calming Spotify playlist to keep me in the work zone and to block out any house noise. Looks like there's a question up here. So someone in the chat question, someone has said, I'm studying part-time as well as working full-time. It feels like I'm chained to my desk and computer from sun up to sundown and not achieving much of anything. How can I be productive in my job and in my study without resenting my computer office life? So I'm actually going to go back to that question at the end of the session as I work through, and then hopefully I'll be able to identify some things that will help you not feel chained to your desk. So I will come back. And so for those of you that are still going to your workplace as well, this is really important, please allow yourself the headspace to acknowledge that there is a lot of additional stress at the moment, whether it be the new requirements around your role, the changes in your workforce, less people around, it is unnerving, or how your hands are going to manage with all this extra washing. Things have changed, and it really is important to allow yourself time, and speaking to others about your concerns is really important. How are you going to transition from work to home and leave that stress and additional pressure at work? What's your going home checklist? How can you allocate time to reflect, rest, and reset? Is it possible to schedule a time at the end of the day with your team or with a colleague to acknowledge things that were difficult and things that went well? If that's not possible, can you try this in your car on the way home? Really ensuring that you're in the best headspace to come home for rest and recharge. because we still need you to be going to work for all the rest of us. So we really want you to be in the best headspace. So as I mentioned at the start, we are going to be communicating in a different way. We're communicating virtually, and it's not the same as when you're face to face and you can hear or feel the sense of what that person is trying to say. So the next tip really is to avoid assumptions. So this is relevant to work colleagues, family, and friends. Everyone has been impacted in some way by the current situation, but in many different ways. So I really encourage you to not assume anything and instead practice kindness. Actively listen and ask simple questions such as, are you okay? And what do you need? If you lead a team, clarify that the team have the resources and information required for tasks. Don't assume that they will ask or that they know what that is. And although we're all in this together, we do not cope in similar ways. Listen and try to encourage an open discussion and reflect on things that are different, but also things that are the same in each person's scenario. The key here being, don't assume. I know some people that are enjoying the time and breathing space without the constant personal and family commitments that are normal of day-to-day life. As part of this, share personal disappointments. So cancelled travel plans, Easter camping trips, birthdays and celebrations. We're all missing out on something that we were looking forward to. So it is important to ask people, how are you feeling? What did you have planned? And if you recognise someone that is struggling, perhaps you can offer to help them recognise what's in and out of their control. And this can help them feel more in control of their circumstances. So the next part is in regards to continuing your work rituals and operating rhythm. So without the normal routine that defines each day, it may be linked to your kids' school routines. Tuesday is sports day, or an after-work activity such as your weekly Scottish dance class. You can start to feel like all the days roll into one, and this can impede your motivation. When you are creating your routine, include regular team meetings and one-on-ones and make sure they happen. Keep those Monday morning meetings in your calendar, but perhaps include a time to check in on challenges, achievements, and maybe even sharing some of those disruptions that occurred. Also, continue those passing chats by calling someone on your coffee break. Book in a lunch with your team and chat about your weekends. Get creative. Bring your pets. Dress up. I saw a post about a team having a morning stretch together. Might depend how close you are with your team, whether you want to take part in that. If you normally have Friday night drinks, schedule it in. Book them in using the virtual platforms such as Zoom or FaceTime Messenger. Have a brainstorming session about random things that you can do as a virtual team to stay connected. It really is that simple, and it's an enjoyable activity for everyone to be part of. So it's really important to maintain our connections now to help us, but also when we go back to the workplace and we can all reflect on those times that we shared while we were all isolated. So the final tip is to acknowledge progress. So a bit the same as reflection in the third space that I discussed in transition. At the end of each day, think of 2 things that you have accomplished and 1 thing that you want to achieve tomorrow. Put the actions with the 1 thing that you want to achieve because it's easier to get started the next day. This will help define your days. It'll keep your motivation up, and another thing that you can do to control your world. Remember to practice self-compassion when doing this. Acceptance of what is and resetting your expectations of how you can achieve some of the goals that you had before all of this disruption is crucial to navigating motivation and engagement. So think about what you previously wanted to achieve and adjust it. Use self-compassion, talk to others. What is achievable right now? Reset this with your team or your partner. You could share these items or the 2 things you have accomplished with your team, with your family in the evening over the meal, or with your team meetings, and this will help encourage accountability. So what we covered is all the things that are in your control. So some of the wellbeing techniques that are listed up the top. We talked about setting up your routine in your workspace, accepting those disruptions, how you're going to transition, what is your third space between work and home. Kindness and gratitude in regards to communication and avoiding assumptions. Continuing your work rituals and getting creative and acknowledging your progress. So this is the end of the formal content, but I'd like you to all stay online just for a little while and we'll answer some of the questions and share current challenges and an online community. Hopefully we can offer advice and tips of what other people are doing. And if you're signing off now, I want to say a really big well done. There really is so much change at the moment. And as a leadership consultant, we see businesses and individuals struggling with change regularly, well before this. And here we all are adapting and overcoming hurdles daily. So I really do applaud each and every one of you and hope you do that for yourselves and those around you. Again, I challenge you, you can control your well-being, utilize your strengths and do at least one thing differently today. I would like to personally thank Commerce Ballarat for the opportunity to speak with you all and be able to connect with you this morning. Please take care of yourself and your family and use the abundance of resources and support that are available on the Commerce Ballarat side. So now I will stop the slides. Right, again, stop the share. Okay. And so let's start with studying part-time as well as working full-time. So the best thing that I'm not quite sure who asked the question, anonymous attendee, what I would suggest is, again, getting that routine in place. So set out small tasks to achieve bigger tasks. What are the things, when you're studying, what are your deadlines and what are the things that you need to achieve? And again, think of the things that perhaps previously you would have liked to achieve, but maybe isn't realistic right now. When you're studying, when it's got the resources, the extra readings and the additional readings, perhaps that's not something that you can do now. And working full time, can you have a discussion with your manager? What's realistic right now? Set some expectations about what you're actually doing. Consider flexible working times, perhaps. There's certain times that you are more creative or able to study easier. And again, that start and finish time, what works for you? Don't start at 9 and just let the day roll on. Schedule in specific breaks. So when is your coffee break? When is your lunch break? And make sure you are walking away from your computer in those breaks. Get out and do something different, something that is bringing you joy. So I think overall, it's just a little bit more about setting a bit more of a routine, shifting, putting in times to shift gears as to which things that you're doing, and speaking with those around you as to what your expectations are and kind of what the new normal is. Does that answer your question? Where they are. And Christine, tips for negotiating alone time in a home of more than 2. So again, I would be looking at dividing your space. So if we're thinking about your workspace, I think it's important of having your personal space and setting boundaries around that. So although you're locked in the one house, think about where is your personal downtime, where is their personal downtime, and where are your workspaces. So I think it's literally about having that discussion with your house members, your family and your kids as to those work boundaries and how you can navigate those. And also for both of those, again, that kindness and self-compassion, being kind to those around you and thinking about making the most of what you've got now. So yes, it's a different and changed circumstance, but let's be grateful of some of the things that are different and are unique about us being able to stay home with each other. So any other, let me check that. Yep, that one's working. So another question that I've heard commonly when we've been speaking to people is, as a leader or as an individual, now that I'm working from home, how do I keep motivated? So many distractions. So some of the tips that we spoke about today is great. Schedule regular check-ins with colleagues or your manager, because it helps keep you accountable and keep you moving along those deadlines. So it's a bit the same as when I'm saying continuing your work rhythms. Those are the things. If you would normally check in at a certain part in a project or a task, make sure you have that check-in. Again, consider those flexible working times. Perhaps starting at 9 is not something that works for you, but perhaps starting at 7 to 8 and knocking out an hour of work and then getting the kids set up, maybe that's something that works better for you, or going for a walk before you start the day. And discuss clear goals, timeframes around the tasks. So all of these things can help you keep motivated. Again, that staying connected and showing kindness. Any other questions? Just holding for a sec. Just keep writing any questions that you have, and I'll keep mentioning some of the things that we've been hearing, things about having kids at home and how do I manage work and kids. Again, using some of those techniques that we discussed today, particularly work boundaries. I know while I've been working from home, sometimes it's difficult when I've got young children, so I have to tell young children, no, this is mum's work time in this room, so you can't come in, which is really difficult. So again, it's about having that communication and giving them tips about what they can do before they come into you. So what other options have they got to help solve their problem before they come into you? And then again, accepting those disruptions. At some points, you're going to have disruptions, making sure you're taking breaks for your coffee break and go out and connect with your kids so they know where you are and they feel like they don't have to come and interrupt. And so that boundary might be when you've got things that you want to ask me, I'll come out at 10 o'clock and you can ask me all of them together. Another thought that has been on people's minds is in regarding to, so recently Prime Minister and the Premiers have started saying that we could be isolated for up to 6 months. So how do we get our head around this? At the start, it all seemed quite novel, and now the reality is starting to kick in, I feel, for a lot of us. And how are we going to manage headspace for such a long period of time? Again, I go back to what's in and out of your control. We can't control the time that this will take, but you can control your thoughts and emotions around this time. So there is, again, that sharing personal disappointments. Oh, in 2 months' time, I was going to do this. So how can you book that in for later? How can we think about when this is over? What's in your control is your thoughts and feelings as to shifting this forward. It doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. It means that perhaps it's not going to happen now and your expectations are going to change around this. And clearly the positive here is us all reducing the spread and us being at home and helping to support the health system and all those people on the front line. Any other questions? Nope. Again, I'm going to sign off now. If you have any, we will record this session and put it online. You'll also receive an email with all the tips that we spoke about today. Please feel free to share the webinar or the tips with anyone. Look after yourselves. Connect with all of those people around you. And thanks so much for the opportunity to speak with you all this morning. And remember to smell the roses or begonias. Okay, that's the end. Thanks, everyone.